feeble cursed ones. Un here with Salad of Olafis at your service, and welcome back to I Played a Thing, Dark Souls 2, Scholar of the First Sin. We are wearing the black set from Strayed this time, and as you can see, the hood improves our casting speed, so we'll be able to get our magic off a little bit faster. That should be of some assistance in our wanderings today. And we are going to start off by heading to the Lost Bastille today. I made it to the Servants' Quarters bonfire last time, and we've got a pursuer right down the ladder from there, so we're going to go ahead and take him on first of all. Gonna need to rearrange my spells a bit, I think, before we get started, though. Maybe we'll try a little bit in the sorcery category today. Bucket? What are you doing? Bucket? Bucket, I'm kind of uncomfortable here. Bucket, I don't like your lack of respect for my personal space here. Bucket? Bucket, I need an adult! Our long national nightmare is over. Alright then. I've got my loadout. Let's take on the pursuer. And this gentleman should be reasonably vulnerable to magic, so I'm going to start by poking at him with Crystal Magic Weapon first. Like the way the crystal enchantment looks in this game. Very spiky. Looks like it ought to hurt, even without the magic damage. And that's interesting there. I've never been hit by his curse attack and not actually been grabbed and cursed by it. Still managed to get myself killed, though. Anyway, I kind of wonder if that only sorta hits you, and you don't take the full brunt of the attack if the grab and curse effect doesn't happen. Don't know. If anyone out there has a clue, feel free to confirm or deny. At any rate, we're going for round 2, and hopefully things will turn out a little better this time. Realize I'm just sticking to kind of an augmented melee approach here, but the pursuer closes distance so rapidly, just sailing across the room and tearing your shit up if he sees an opening, that standing back and blasting away at him with spells just doesn't seem like a real good way to stay alive. Always gotta be careful with those shield bashes. Those will easily break my guard, and being stunned and guard broken against a fast-moving enemy is never a good place to be. And as usual, he leaves himself nice and vulnerable for the back poking when he goes for his dark magic attack. And we get our Twinkie. And you know, I have no particularly good reason to want to go to Belfry Luna this time. We got everything we really need from there during the first game cycle, but it's there, and it must be conquered. So, let's go ahead and get on with that. Well, the bell ringing process went pretty smoothly and mostly uninterrupted. No invasions, which really surprises me in one of the bell towers. I guess everyone's off ganking in Dark Souls 3, which I am still playing and still enjoying. Still a long way to go. Anyway, we're gonna bring along Masterless G once again, and the Belfry Gargoyles should be weak against magic damage, so we're gonna start out with Crystal Magic and see if I can poke a few good holes into the first one before they start mobbing me. Then we'll have Soul Spear ready to start shooting at the remainder of them while Masterless G holds them up. At least that's the theory. We'll see how it actually works out in practice. Oh, mind the tail there, Salad. I really should have seen that shadow looming over me, but oh well. Got the second gargoyle activated, and so we are going to heal up real quick, and then we'll start unleashing the soul spears. Well, no, maybe a little more poking first. Alright, now's a good time to start with the soul spears. 500. Yeah, that's some pretty damn good damage, I have to say. I am out of soul spears already. It occurs to me that I probably should have popped an herb here and kept on firing those, because I have plenty of herbs to spare, and that's why I put them on my quick bar, but, well, you don't always think of these things in the heat of battle, now do you? Glencore is taking a hell of a beating there, but while that means we're going to lose his assistance sooner than later, it means I'm not the one taking a hell of a beating. Most of the time. That's what he's there for, take the hit so I don't have to. But I will anyway. I'm charitable like that. I'm kinda out of magic damage sources, so that means I'm going to start in with the dark orbs. Oh, no, I still do have a few great heavy soul arrows, so we'll go ahead and empty the quiver of those. But yeah, then I'm going to be down to dark damage, which is not as good against these guys. I don't think they're especially resistant to it, I just don't think they're as vulnerable to it as they are to the magic. But statistically, the dark orbs are what we're probably best with. Well, that's actually some fairly good thinking on my part. Try and use the area effect of the flame swathe, and yeah, that packs a pretty respectable punch. Now we are back to the orbs, and as I was starting to say there, because we have a good balance of intelligence and faith, our dark damage bonus is probably better than any of our others because of our split stats. Got in a little trouble there with the fire breath, but in the end I think we're about to pull it out, and yes, there we have it. And there we see the first of our boss +2 rings. That's something new in New Game Plus. A lot of the bosses, when you defeat them in New Game Plus or better, you get a +2 version of a ring. And with a job well done, time to sit by the fire a spell. We got a pretty good haul of souls from that boss fight, and that means time for a level. Yeah, we'll keep pumping that attunement. I think it's still possible for me to get another slot or two. I think 9 might be the maximum, so that should be one more. I'll have to check my work on that, but I believe that to be the case. And yeah, we've gotten everything we could possibly get from the Dragon Slayer soul, so... I love soul food. Feed me more! In the immortal words of one Frederick Krueger. And that's enough for our next level. Yeah, we'll keep banging on that attunement for a little while. Having some second thoughts, I see. But yeah, in the end, we're gonna go with that. Now, before that level-raising interlude, we were sitting around the fire, getting nice and warm and cozy, and when you're sitting around the fire, what do you want to do but roast some hot dogs? Delicious. Thank you, Nadalia. No particular reason for me to take on Vorgil the Sinner here, because we did get all the treasure from his area in the previous game cycle, and there's really nothing new to be had here. I just kinda wanted to nuke all the dogs. Which is quite unlike me, I am a dog person, but, well, they're undead, and they're Very mean little bastards. Anyway, moving on. So here I am having another go at a pursuer, as there are so many of here in the Bastille. And just as the fight gets going, I get a notice of an invasion. And I think I heard the warp-in sound there, so he couldn't have been very far away. Well, we'll just have to hope we can take down Mr. Pursuer here before the battle, or before the invader gets there. That time his cursed stab, it still kind of glancingly hit me, but that time I did get the grab. Just as I lose the battle, there he is. Sorry there, Ryu, you're a little bit late. Full marks for your ninjutsu attempt, though. Alright, second verse, hopefully a little more harmonious than the first. And while I'm having a fight that you've seen the likes of before, on the News from Un front, yesterday I had the first of my demo sessions with my voice acting coach and her husband who handles the production side of things. And I'm a very poor judge of my own abilities and performances, but they seemed real happy with how it went, and it seemed surprisingly painless, so I think that's probably a good sign. And that's going to be the first of 2 demo sessions. I have the next one in 2 weeks, and after that I will in fact have a professionally produced voiceover demo, and I'll be able to start looking for work. Now, both my current coach and the previous one that I didn't last with have said that almost nobody actually makes a living at this, but, well, that would be the dream, so fingers crossed, and hopefully at least I'll be able to put together some good beer money from it. Usually I don't come this way, but with the Silver Cat ring equipped just to be safe, I decided to do a 2-stage drop into the next Pursuer arena here. But that wasn't entirely a good bit of planning on my part, because we have dogs down here, of course, as well as the Pursuer. That complicates matters quite a bit. Ah, 4 of them. Yeah, I definitely could have thought this through a little better. But not even so much thought it through as remembered that all these enemies were down here, and yep, bit me in the ass in the end. Alright, let's try that again. This time we're remembering the dogs and kind of prioritizing luring them out and poking them down, and oh, wow. That explosion might have temporarily saved me there, because it did stun the Pursuer and knock him down, but only delayed the inevitable. Right around that point, I got a little sick of the Bastille, decided to head for the wharf, and there you see how with New Game Plus damage, those 2 Sword Varangians can burst you down pretty goddamn fast. Now, this being a very long and bonfireless area, it's rough on the S-stock, so I brought along Repair, showing that while the pew-pew was all nice and good, having a utility spell or 2 in the drawer can be very handy as well. Now, right here, I decided to see how Dark Orb would work against ninjas. And the answer is pretty well. A nice clean 2-shot. It's not a 1-shot, but it'll readily do the job. Nice thing about New Game Plus is that I've got plenty of flame butterflies to work with, and so no sconces need be left behind. Now, somewhere around here there should be another ninja, so I can continue my orb testing. Well, he doesn't seem to want to show up quite yet, so we'll do the sparking up thing again. Always rather satisfying. Of course, that could be just me. Ah, there you are. Yeah, you might think ninjas would resist dark pretty well, but not so much. Here's our old buddy Carillion again. And it turns out, just like Lycia did with Faith, he has a little gift for us for having such high intelligence. First, though, we're going to pick up all his herbs, because being a caster, we may actually need them this time. Expensive, but probably worth it. There we go, we get a slightly pumped up Northern Ritual band from him. Not bad at all. I want to make sure I exhaust his dialogue here, so he will head on back to Majula. There we go. Now then, we've got the ship summoned and we are almost at it, so what I'm gonna do here is, first I am going to clear out the ship, and for that I will enlist the assistance of our dear old friend Lucatiel. Prepare for boarding. First of all, we're going to have a Varangian or two who will need to pick off. And hopefully not get comboed into oblivion in a single string of attacks like just happened to us a little while ago. Yeah, Lucatiel, you just keep those two busy for me, won't you? Ah, Dark Orb, you are an efficient and reliable friend. Now then, in New Game Plus, we do have an additional bit of business to take care of here. This red phantom with a twin blade. Once again, that is why I brought Lucatiel along. This is a fairly resilient phantom, pretty decent HP. So we're gonna let Lucatiel continue to keep him entertained, while we continue to pepper him with our other very reliable companion, Dark Orb. And that'll work out just fine. And we get some pants, too. Now then, we've got just one more enemy left aboard the ship, and it's just another of those mummified fellows from the Bastille. No big deal. We'll just stabulate him. Alright, moment's rest here to refill some of our orb castings. Now there are no enemies down here inside the ship, but I wasn't entirely sure if there were any added for New Game Plus, so I wanted to double check on that. Looks like we're safe though. Excuse me, Luca. Thank you. Alright then, now we're going to fix up the S-Dock. And fix up the Lucatiel. Excellent. Now, a little additional wrinkle this time, I'm going to use that plank shortcut that was introduced in Scholar of the First Sin. I'm gonna run back to the beginning of the wharf. And we're gonna take Old School Brad to the boss fight. Now, being a shade rather than a proper phantom, Brad here doesn't last very long, but since I have cleared the path and we have a straight run right on back to the ship, There should be plenty of time for him to help us out with the boss. The Flexile Sentry, the first time I ever played through New Game Plus, ended up being one of the toughest bosses for me. I think it took me like 6 or 7 tries to beat him. But this time we'll be able to hang back and we'll have a little more help than usual. And I have a strategy, so we will test that and see how that works out for me. Now the difference with the Flexile Sentry in New Game Plus is that he has a couple of ninjas join him at the beginning of the fight. So what I'm going to do is double down on my dark damage and use Resonant Weapon to give my S-Stock a delicious grapey flavor. And that should allow us to burst down one of the ninjas right at the start. And a little interference from his buddy there, but we did pretty well with the whole killing part, so now we only have one man in black to deal with. And yeah, that is the hardest part of this fight in New Game Plus, is just surviving the ninja onslaught at the beginning, because they will rush you. But yeah, bursting them down with dark damage worked out just fine, and now there's nothing but the Flexile Sentry left, and our 2 psychotic friends are keeping him very adequately busy, so we can just stand back and fill him full of resonant souls. Already down to half damage. I'm just going with dark because the Flexile Sentry doesn't have any particularly huge weaknesses. Once the water rises, he becomes very vulnerable to lightning, but in the meantime, you can use pretty much whatever and it'll work fine. So I'll just stick with our reliable damage dealer with our split faith and intelligence build. And that'll work a treat. It's pretty neat that they were prepared for Bradley to join you in the boss fight, and they gave him a bow emote for when you win. Neat little touch. And we got some drops of the ninja equipment, too. Now, in pre-Scholar, in the original release of the game, this was the only place in the entire game that the ninjas ever appeared. So farming their equipment could be a real pain in the ass. In Scholar, though, if you really want it, it's not that big of a deal. Anyway, we've taken the ship to the other entrance of the Lost Bastille. I will spark up the cell bonfire here, and that's really gonna be just about it for the day. Rather short episode this time, for which I do apologize. I ended up recording about 2 hours of gameplay for this, but in the Bastille and in No Man's Wharf, outside of the boss fight and the Red Phantom on the ship, there really wasn't a whole lot new about New Game Plus to actually show you. Oh well, I'm really happy with how the Flexile Sentry boss fight ended up going, because that one, as I mentioned before, had been a real headache for me in the past. So we're gonna drop one more into attunement, and I think that's gonna do it for this time. Well, folks, a short episode, but a fairly productive one, and I thank you as always for joining me. This is Un and Salad, saying have a good one. Today's episode has been brought to you by Justin Carpenter, Nolden, Zangamarth, Charlie Dunst, Anonymous Benefactor, John Madigan, Johnny Millennium, Sanguine Games, Misha Van Doren, Craig Patterson, Frank Grizzy, Tim J., Lolo De Puzzlo, Joshua C. Ritchie, Jared C. Rice, Darren Chow, Sonic Rose, EX Potemkin, Alicia Goranson, Argyle Jelly, Mechasaurus, DG Jono, Doug Russell, August Fortnight, Patrick Bellinger, and many more very generous patrons. Thank you all, and thanks as always to all commenters, subscribers, and watchers. Every one of you contributes to keeping the bonfire lit. I appreciate it very much, and I hope you have an excellent week. Till next time.